Nobody warned Marlon Brando, not his publicist, not his manager, not the radio host who booked him for a casual Friday afternoon interview. Not one single person on the production staff at KMET Los Angeles told the most famous actor in America that Bruce Lee was sitting 6 feet away in the guest lounge, listening to every word through the studio monitors. 23 people heard what happened next. The radio station buried the tape. The host, veteran broadcaster Jim Dunbar, never spoke about it publicly. And Marlon Brando, the man who played The Godfather, the man who won 2 Academy Awards, the man whose voice alone could silence a room, that man was about to be silenced himself. Not by a director, not by a studio executive, not by a critic, by a 135-pound martial artist who didn't raise his voice once. This is what really happened on Friday, November 12, 1971. This is the conversation Hollywood tried to erase. Los Angeles, California. KMET Radio Studios, Metro Media Square, Sunset Boulevard. Friday, November 12, 1971. Late afternoon, 4:15 p.m. The air in the studio hallway smells like cigarette smoke and old carpet. Outside, the November sun is fading behind the Hollywood hills. Traffic on Sunset crawls past in both directions. Inside KMET, Studio B is being prepared for the afternoon drive time interview segment. 2 leather chairs face each other across a low table cluttered with ashtrays, water glasses, and a copy of that morning's Los Angeles Times. 3 microphones hang from chrome booms. The soundboard operator, a 24-year-old named Gary Kelgren, adjusts levels behind the glass. The production assistant sets out fresh coffee. The studio audience today is small. 23 people, mostly station staff, a few invited guests, a freelance photographer from the Times entertainment desk. This is not a public event. It is a private taping for later broadcast, a pre-recorded segment meant to air the following Tuesday at 7 p.m. That broadcast never happened. Jim Dunbar has been hosting interview shows in Los Angeles since 1962. 9 years behind the microphone. He's interviewed Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Bob Hope, Muhammad Ali. He knows how to handle big personalities. He knows when to push, when to pull back, when to let silence do the work. Today, his guest is Marlon Brando, the biggest movie star on the planet. Marlon Brando in November 1971 is at the absolute peak of his second act. He is 47 years old, 5 feet 10 inches tall, 210 pounds, heavier than his streetcar days but still commanding, still magnetic. His face is rounder now, but those eyes, those legendary eyes, still carry the weight of every role he's ever played. Stanley Kowalski, Terry Malloy, Vito Corleone. The Godfather has wrapped filming 3 months earlier. It will release in March 1972 and become the highest-grossing film in history. But right now, in November 1971, Brando doesn't know that yet. What Brando knows is that he is Marlon Brando. 2 Academy Awards, 1 refused, 8 nominations total. Named by Time magazine as one of the greatest actors of the 20th century. Directors beg for him. Studios build entire productions around his schedule. When Marlon Brando walks into a room, the room rearranges itself around him. His confidence is not quiet. It never has been. Brando has opinions, and he shares them. Publicly, loudly, without apology. He has opinions about acting, about politics, about civil rights, about Native American issues, about the studio system, about other actors. And today, as it will become painfully clear, he has opinions about martial arts. Brando's connection to fighting is superficial but sincere in his own mind. He trained briefly with a judo instructor named Gene Kano at the Kodokan Academy on Wilshire Boulevard in the late 1950s, preparing for a film role that was eventually canceled. 8 lessons total. He learned how to fall, how to grip a lapel, how to look convincing on camera when throwing someone. He never competed, never sparred, never tested himself against anyone who was trying to win. He also took boxing lessons, 12 sessions with an ex-middleweight named Sal Marchetti at the Olympic Boxing Gym on La Brea Avenue. Marchetti taught him footwork, basic combinations, how to throw a credible jab for the on-the-waterfront fight scenes. Marchetti later told a Los Angeles sports writer that Brando had good hands and terrible discipline. He would throw one punch and then stop to talk about how it felt, like he was studying the emotion of punching, not the punch itself. Brando once told a reporter from Playboy magazine that he understood physical combat because he grew up in a tough neighborhood in Omaha, Nebraska. He described schoolyard fistfights, a scuffle with a dock worker when he was 19, a bar altercation in New York during his early theater days. These stories may have been true. They may have been embellished. What matters is that Brando believed them. And believing them, he believed he understood violence. Real violence. The kind of violence that happens when there are no cameras, no choreographers, no second takes. He believes these experiences give him authority. They do not. But Marlon Brando is not a man accustomed to being told he is wrong. He has surrounded himself with people who agree with him for so long that disagreement feels like disrespect. Compliments feel like truth. And silence from others feels like confirmation that he is right. He has not been genuinely challenged in a room in over a decade. He has forgotten what it feels like to be the one who doesn't know. This is the flaw that will undo him today. Not arrogance, exactly. Something worse. Certainty without knowledge. The deep, comfortable belief that his fame gives his opinions weight in areas where he has no expertise. In Hollywood, this works. At dinner parties, it works. In magazine interviews, it works. In a radio studio with microphones recording every word across from a man who has dedicated his entire life to the thing Brando is about to dismiss, it will not work at all. The interview begins normally. Jim Dunbar asks about The Godfather. Brando is charming, funny, evasive in the way movie stars are. He talks about Coppola, talks about the cat in the opening scene, talks about the cotton he stuffed in his cheeks to change the shape of his jaw. The 23 people in the studio laugh at his stories. He is magnetic, undeniable. 15 minutes in, the conversation shifts. Dunbar asks about physical roles. Brando talks about On the Waterfront, the boxing scenes, how he trained for weeks to look authentic. Then Dunbar mentions something offhand. He mentions that Bruce Lee, who is also at the station today for a separate interview scheduled at 5 p.m., has been revolutionizing how fight scenes look on film. That his work on The Big Boss, released 3 months earlier in Hong Kong, is being called the most realistic combat ever captured on camera. Brando's expression changes. Subtle. The 23 witnesses will later describe it differently. Some say he looked annoyed. Others say amused. Gary Kelgren behind the glass will later say Brando looked like a man who had just been told the weather by someone he considered beneath him. Brando waves his hand dismissively. Bruce Lee? I've seen clips. I've seen the television show, the Green Hornet thing. Dunbar nods. A talented guy, sure. He's here today, actually, down the hall. Brando continues as if Dunbar hasn't spoken. Look, I respect athleticism. I respect dedication to physical craft. But what Bruce Lee does is not fighting. It's performance. It's a circus act. It's choreography dressed up as combat. The studio goes quiet. Not silent. Quiet. The kind of quiet where people stop rustling papers and shifting in their seats. Dunbar tries to redirect. Well, Marlon, Bruce Lee does have quite a reputation in martial arts circles. He's trained some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Brando cuts him off. Train them to do what? To look good on camera? That's choreography. That's dance. A real fighter, a boxer, a wrestler, someone who has actually taken a punch. They would eat this kung fu stuff alive. It's acrobatics. Impressive acrobatics, sure. But it's not real fighting. It's not combat. It's what people who have never been in a real fight think fighting looks like. The production assistant, a woman named Linda Castillo, is standing near the hallway door. She looks through the small window into the guest lounge. Bruce Lee is sitting there, alone, reading a magazine. But the studio monitors are on. He can hear every word. Linda will later tell friends that Bruce set down the magazine very slowly, very carefully, the way you set something down when you are deciding what to do next. In the studio, Brando is warming to his subject. I grew up fighting. Omaha. Real fights. No choreography, no camera angles, no second takes. When you get hit in a real fight, you don't flip backward like a gymnast. You stumble, you bleed, you get scared. This kung fu stuff, it teaches people that fighting is clean and pretty. It's not. It's ugly and desperate and frightening. The door to Studio B opens. Quiet. No dramatic entrance. No announcement. Bruce Lee walks in wearing a simple dark blue button-down shirt, black slacks, black shoes. No costume, no uniform, no GI. He is 5 feet 7 inches tall, 135 pounds. His forearms are roped with veins. His posture is perfect, weight centered, shoulders relaxed, hands at his sides. He looks calm the way a lake looks calm before you realize how deep it is. Jim Dunbar sees him first. Bruce, come in. We were just... Brando turns. He sees a small man in street clothes. He does not look impressed. He does not look concerned. He looks the way a lion looks at a house cat. Curious, faintly amused. I heard what you said, Bruce speaks quietly, directly to Brando. Not angry, not hurt. His voice is steady, measured, like he's explaining something simple to someone who should already understand it. You called what I do a circus act. Brando doesn't flinch. He's Marlon Brando. He has stared down directors, studio heads, the entire Hollywood establishment. A small martial artist does not intimidate him. I said what I believe, Brando replies. No malice. Just the casual certainty of a man who has never been wrong in a room before. The 23 people in the studio freeze. Gary Kelgren behind the glass has the presence of mind to verify the tape is still rolling. It is. Bruce pulls a chair closer, sits down across from Brando. Not in the other interview chair. A third chair, closer, perhaps 4 feet between them. The space between a conversation and a confrontation. You believe a boxer would beat a martial artist, Bruce says. Not a question, a clarification. Yes, Brando says. In a real fight, no rules. A trained boxer beats a kung fu practitioner every time. I don't say that to disrespect you. I say it because it's true. Bruce nods slowly. The nod of a man who has heard this exact argument 100 times. Would you like me to show you why you're wrong? Brando laughs, not nervously. A genuine, surprised laugh. You want to fight me? Here? In a radio studio? No. Bruce shakes his head. I don't want to fight you. I want to show you something. Something that will change what you believe. If you're willing to learn. If your mind is as strong as your opinions. The room holds its breath. Brando studies Bruce. He sees the calm. He sees the confidence. But what he recognizes, and this is what several witnesses later described, is something deeper. He recognizes sincerity. This is not a man trying to prove a point. This is a man offering a gift, an uncomfortable one, but a gift. All right, Brando says, show me. Bruce stands, asks Brando to stand. Brando does, slowly, the way a big man stands when he wants you to notice his size. He towers over Bruce, 3 inches taller, 75 pounds heavier. His hands are twice the size of Bruce's. The contrast is almost comical. Hit me, Bruce says. Brando blinks. What? Throw a punch. Your best punch. The way you learned in Omaha. The way you trained for on the waterfront. Hit me as hard as you can. Jim Dunbar starts to object. "Bruce, maybe we should—" Bruce holds up one hand without looking at Dunbar. His eyes never leave Brando's. The objection dies. Brando settles into something that roughly resembles a boxing stance, left foot forward, right fist cocked near his chin. The stance of a man who has watched boxing, has trained a little, knows the basics. He is not a trained fighter. But he is a big man, a strong man. And he throws a right cross aimed directly at Bruce's chest. Bruce doesn't block it. He redirects it. His right hand rises, meets the incoming fist at the wrist. Paksao. A slapping deflection. The technique takes perhaps a quarter of a second. Brando's fist, all 210 pounds behind it, slides harmlessly 4 inches to the left of Bruce's body. Brando stumbles forward, pulled by his own momentum, the physics of a punch that expected to connect with something solid but found only air and a light tap that changed its trajectory. Before Brando can recover his balance, Bruce's left hand is positioned at Brando's throat. Not touching. 1 inch away. Close enough that Brando can feel the warmth of Bruce's skin. Close enough that the message is unmistakable. That could have landed. Should have landed. Would have ended the conversation permanently. The entire exchange takes 2 seconds. Bruce holds the position for 3 seconds more. Long enough for everyone to see. Long enough for Brando to understand. Long enough for the 23 witnesses to register what just happened. The most famous actor in the world just threw his best punch at a man 75 pounds lighter, and that man is now 1 inch from his throat without having moved more than 6 inches total. Then Bruce steps back, gives Brando space, drops his hands to his sides. Brando is breathing hard, not from exertion, from shock. His face has changed. The amusement is gone. The certainty is gone. Something else has replaced it, not fear, respect. The kind of respect that only arrives when you realize you were fundamentally completely wrong about something you were completely sure about. "Try again," Bruce says. "This time, anything you want. Any technique. Punch, grab, push. Whatever feels natural." Brando tries again. A left jab this time, followed by a right hook. 2 punches thrown with real intention, real force. Bruce slips the jab, moves his head 2 inches to the right, just enough, not a millimeter more. The hook he intercepts at the elbow, lopsao, a pulling deflection. He guides Brando's arm downward and past, rotating Brando's body 90 degrees so that the big man is now facing the wrong direction entirely. Bruce's right fist stops 1 inch from the back of Brando's neck, base of the skull, the point where a real strike would cause unconsciousness, or worse. Again, 2 seconds. The 23 witnesses are motionless. Gary Kellgren later described the moment as watching a cat play with a bull. Not cruel, patient, controlled. Bruce steps back again. Brando turns around slowly. His hands are shaking. Not from fear, from the realization of how wrong he has been. From the understanding that everything he thought he knew about fighting, about martial arts, about this small man standing in front of him, all of it was wrong. Every opinion he had stated with certainty over the past 15 minutes, broadcast to 23 witnesses and recorded on magnetic tape, all of it had been demolished in 4 seconds of actual physical contact. The studio is absolutely silent. Not a cough, not a chair squeak, not a rustle of paper. 23 people breathing as quietly as they can. Gary Kellgren behind the glass has both hands flat on the soundboard. He has forgotten to adjust levels. The needle is pinned. Nobody cares. "How?" Brando asks. The single word contains 1,000 questions. Bruce sits back down. His voice is warm now. Teaching, not lecturing. You telegraph everything. Your shoulder moves before your fist. Your weight shifts before you step. Your eyes look where you're going to hit. A trained fighter reads these signals. I don't react to your punch. I react to the movement that comes before your punch. By the time your fist arrives, I already know where it will be. And I am not there. Brando sits down slowly, like a man sitting after receiving unexpected news. He's quiet for a long time. The silence stretches. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Nobody in the studio moves. Then Brando speaks. I owe you an apology. I spoke from ignorance. What you do is not a circus act. I don't know what it is, but it is not what I said it was. Bruce leans forward. You were right about one thing. Real fighting is ugly. Real violence is terrible. What I teach is not about fighting. It is about understanding. Understanding your body. Understanding your opponent. Understanding that the goal is not to destroy, but to control. Not to overpower, but to redirect. Water does not fight the rock. Water flows around the rock. And over time, water wears the rock to nothing. Brando stares at him. You're a philosopher. I'm a student, Bruce says. I'm always a student. The moment you believe you know everything is the moment you stop learning. You are Marlon Brando. You are the greatest actor alive. But in this room, on this subject, you are a beginner. And that's fine. Every master was once a beginner who was willing to look foolish. Brando is quiet. The kind of quiet that only happens when a person is genuinely processing something new, not formulating a response, not waiting for his turn to speak, actually thinking, actually reconsidering. For a man who has spent 30 years being told he is brilliant, this is unfamiliar territory, uncomfortable. But Bruce has made it safe. There is no mockery in his voice, no superiority, just truth, delivered with kindness. I have spent my entire career, Brando says slowly, trying to find truth in performance, trying to strip away the fake and find what's real underneath. And you're telling me I walked in here today and did the exact opposite. I performed an opinion. I dressed up ignorance as knowledge. I put on a show. Bruce nods. Everyone does it. The question is what you do when you realize it. Most people defend the performance. The brave ones take off the mask. Jim Dunbar, who has been silent for nearly 4 minutes, speaks into his microphone. I think we should take a break. They don't take a break. What happens instead is that Brando asks Bruce to continue. For the next 22 minutes, Bruce Lee gives Marlon Brando a private lesson in martial arts philosophy. He explains Wing Chun centerline theory, how every attack and defense flows along the vertical center of the body. He demonstrates Chi Sao, sticking hands, sensitivity training. He places his forearms against Brando's and shows him how a trained practitioner can feel an opponent's intention through physical contact before the movement begins. He explains Jeet Kune Do, using no way as way, having no limitation as limitation. He tells Brando that traditional fighting systems, like traditional acting methods, can become prisons. The form becomes more important than the function. The style becomes more important than the truth. Brando, the method actor, the man who revolutionized acting by insisting on emotional truth over theatrical technique. Brando understands this immediately. You're saying what I did to acting, you're doing to fighting. Bruce smiles. I'm saying that truth has no style. The tape runs out at 4:58 p.m., 43 minutes of recording. The station decides not to air it. The official reason? Technical issues with the audio levels. The real reason, according to Linda Castillo and 2 other station employees who later discussed it, the station didn't want to embarrass Marlon Brando. He was too big, too powerful, too connected. A recording of the greatest actor in the world being physically humbled by a martial artist, twice, and then admitting he was wrong. That tape was worth more buried than broadcast. Brando never returned to KMET. Jim Dunbar never publicly discussed the interview. When asked about it years later by a reporter from the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, Dunbar said only that some conversations are better left in the room where they happened, but the 23 people who were there talked, quietly, privately, among friends. The story spread through Hollywood in whispers. Martial arts instructors in Los Angeles heard about it within weeks. Karate school owners on the West Coast discussed it at tournaments. The details traveled through dojos and boxing gyms and film studio backlots like smoke under a door. You could not stop it. You could not contain it. Some details changed in the telling. Some versions had Brando throwing 3 punches. Some had 5. Some said Bruce threw him to the ground. He didn't. Some said Brando cried. He didn't. What he did was something harder than crying. He sat quietly for 22 minutes and listened, and learned, and asked questions like a man who had just discovered that the world was larger than he thought, like a man who had just learned that the edge of his knowledge was not the edge of the world. Brando and Bruce met twice more before Bruce's death in July 1973. Once at a dinner party at Steve McQueen's house in Brentwood, February 1972. Once at a private gathering at James Coburn's home in Beverly Hills, April 1972. At the Coburn dinner, according to 3 people present, Brando introduced Bruce to another guest by saying, "This man taught me more in 43 minutes than I learned in 47 years. Don't ever make the mistake of underestimating him." I did. Once. Bruce Lee died on July 20, 1973. He was 32 years old. Brando attended no public memorial. But Linda Castillo, the production assistant from KMET, later said she received a phone call the day after Bruce's death. A man's voice. She recognized it immediately. He asked if the tape still existed. She said she believed it had been erased. There was a long pause. Then the voice said, "That's a shame." That was the most honest conversation I ever had. The line went dead. 23 witnesses, 1 tape, erased, 2 punches that never landed, 1 lesson that did. November 12, 1971. KMET Studios, Sunset Boulevard. The day the greatest actor in the world discovered that fame is not the same as knowledge. The day Marlon Brando learned that the smallest man in the room can carry the largest truth. The day a circus act made The Godfather a student.